Parking lot lines feel permanent, but they are a relatively recent solution to a very human problem. They did not emerge because cars demanded them. Cars can sit anywhere. They emerged because people do not naturally agree on how much space they deserve. Before automobiles, parking as a concept barely existed. Vehicles were fewer, slower, and often stored privately. When cars began appearing in cities in significant numbers, they borrowed habits from horses and carriages. Drivers stopped near destinations, along streets, at curbs, or in open areas. Space was claimed informally. If something fit, it stayed. This worked only while volume was low. As cars multiplied, open areas turned into informal lots. Drivers pulled in at different angles, following convenience rather than structure. Some parked tightly, others left wide buffers. No one was technically wrong, but the outcome was inefficient and frustrating. Space filled unevenly. Late arrivals struggled. Early departures created unusable gaps. The problem was not parking. It was coordination. Humans are poor at sharing limited resources without shared rules, especially when those resources are abstract. Space feels elastic. What feels enough varies wildly from person to person. In a parking lot, that variability becomes visible and costly. Painted lines introduced a shared fiction. They told every driver the same story. This is your space. Not more, not less. Just this. The lines do not change the physical environment in any meaningful way. They add no barriers. They add no enforcement. And yet, behavior shifts immediately. This is because the lines remove negotiation. Without lines, every parking attempt is a decision. How close is too close? Is this angle acceptable? Am I leaving enough room? With lines, those questions disappear. You are not choosing. You are aligning. That alignment matters more than the paint itself. The dimensions of parking spaces reflect a series of compromises shaped by vehicles, economics, and human tolerance. Spaces are not designed for comfort. They are designed for sufficiency. Wide enough to accommodate most cars and most doors. Narrow enough to fit as many vehicles as possible without provoking constant damage or outrage. This balance is fragile. Make spaces slightly narrower, and frustration rises. Doors hit, people complain. Make them wider, and capacity drops. The cost of land increases. The system breaks in a different way. Lines enforce this balance quietly. Their visibility is tuned, bright enough to be seen in low light, faded enough over time to signal age and authority rather than novelty. Fresh paint demands attention. Old paint blends into habit. Both guide behavior. Angles matter too. Straight-in parking maximizes density but increases difficulty. Angled parking sacrifices some space to reduce decision-making and collision risk. The choice reflects priorities: speed versus capacity, turnover versus permanence. None of this is communicated explicitly. Drivers are never told why the lines exist or why they are shaped the way they are. They are simply expected to obey them, and remarkably, they do. This obedience reveals something important. Parking lot lines work not because they are enforced, but because they feel fair. Everyone gets the same space. No one can plausibly claim ignorance. The rule is visible, neutral, and impersonal. You are not being corrected by another person. You are being corrected by the environment. Humans respond better to that. The lines externalize responsibility. If you park poorly, it is obvious, not because someone says so, but because the geometry does. This reduces conflict. Arguments turn into glances. Shame replaces confrontation. The system polices itself. Over time, this behavior becomes automatic. Drivers stop noticing the lines consciously. They simply align. The paint disappears into muscle memory. This is where the deeper function of parking lot lines becomes clear. They are not about organizing cars. They are about organizing strangers. A parking lot is a temporary community of people who do not know each other and do not intend to interact. The lines create cooperation without communication. They allow hundreds of people to share space peacefully while pretending they are alone. The realization often comes quietly. The lines are doing social work. They replace trust with structure. They replace negotiation with compliance. They make fairness visible and therefore unquestioned. This explains why ignoring parking lot lines feels transgressive even when no one is watching. The rule is not enforced externally. It has been internalized. The lines do not need authority because they feel reasonable. When lines fade or disappear, tension returns. Drivers hesitate. Angles drift. Space becomes ambiguous again. The absence of paint reveals how much work it was doing all along. Invisible design succeeds when it removes choices people do not want to make. Parking lot lines remove the burden of deciding how much space you deserve relative to others. They answer the question before it can become a conflict. The final insight is simple but easy to miss. Parking lot lines are not instructions for cars. They are agreements for humans, written in paint, enforced by shared expectation, and so well integrated into daily life that they no longer feel like rules at all. That is what invisible design looks like.